Hey guys, Luke here back on Sean's channel. Today I'm bringing you guys yet another Cyberdragon deck profile. Now this is a little bit different from the other Cyberdragon deck profiles I've done before because now I've finally come around to just accepting the fact that maybe it's better we try making this deck around going first. I really love my going second OTK decks. I make my Sky Striker deck a blind second deck. I usually have my Cyber Dragons a blind second deck. I even have some Tempai dragons in my Dragon Lore deck just so I have the opportunity to go second. I just love OTK decks so much, but I decided to kind of come around to the fact that maybe this deck is a little bit better off going first. We're going to go through this deck right now, and then probably in the next video we're going to be doing an actual combo guide where I'll be running through you the combos and actually going first with this deck, because it is a lot different from what I'm used to, so I was trying to take my time on actually getting a little bit better and getting to know this deck a little bit more. But I still try to keep this as true to Cyber Dragons as I know how to play it as much as I possibly can. So without further ado, let's just get straight into this. This is Cyber Dragons. Starting things off, I know a bunch of people will be saying you need to only run Cyber Dragon at 2 copies in this deck, which I can kind of agree with to a certain extent. But I am very stubborn, so I decide to run 3 copies in this deck. I just think Cyber Dragon is just probably one of my favorite cards. I just love him so much. And I think it's an absolute sin to not run him at 3 copies. I know I'm stuck in the past and blinded to the truth, but sure, look, this is how I want to play the deck, so this is how I'm doing it. I also have a bit of logic behind this just because I know Cyber Dragon is very essential to some of your combos. So you do need at least one in a rotation very early at the start of the game. But if we're a little bit further into the game and you manage to draw Machine Duplication, which we now run again in this deck, I like to have an extra 2 copies of Cyber Dragon in the deck so our Machine Duplication is very good and live. So that's my reason for running it at 3 copies. If you want to go for 2, that's fine. This deck is 41 cards, so I kind of give you the option if you want to just run the 2 copies of Cyber Dragon or 3. But again, that's totally up to yourselves. Something that's not up for debate though is definitely 3 copies of Core. Absolutely run this at 3 copies. Core is your main combo starter, so you want to open this in your hand every time. We maximize our copies of Core and maximize our copies of Cyber Emergency because we want to see Core in our opening hand every game. Core is essential because when Core is normal summoned, it's a mandatory effect where you're able to search for a Cyber spell or trap and add it to your hand, which 9 times out of 10 is going to be your copy of Cyberdark Realm, just because that is the main combo that you're going to go down. But there's other cards that you can search off this effect, including Cyber Emergency and Cyber Repair Plant as well. But either way, Core is absolutely mandatory to run at 3, so you guys definitely need to run it at 3. This is not up for interpretation or debate. 3 copies of Core. 1 copy of Nachster and 2 copies of Herz. I still stand by this is the best ratio. I know I've read some comments where some people say that you do want to run Herz at 3 and 2 copies of Nachster. I see where you're coming from, but I don't really think it's all that necessary. Not only are we going first, so we want to open as low bricks as possible, but also we still have a good bounce back from OTKing if we're going into turn 3. So we don't necessarily need that many more names in order to pull that off. So I think 2 copies of Herz and 1 copy of Nachster is all you really need. If you want to run it at more, you can absolutely go ahead. If you want to change around the ratios, that's fine. If you want to add 1 extra copy of Nachster, I completely understand it. If you want to just throw it in, that'll make this card a 42 card deck, which is still quite good in terms of a deck count. That would be the only change that I would consider making. But definitely for the time being, I'm definitely really happy with this ratio right here. Especially keeping Herz at 2 copies just because it can be a brick if we open it, but we always need at least 1 in our deck in order to make sure our combo goes off as planned. 1 copy of Cyber Jormungandr, I mean, it's fine. If you've seen my other videos on Cyber Dragons, you guys already know I really don't like this card. But it serves as a fine enough purpose, I guess. He is less good in this deck than he is in my previous decks, just because he is more of a going second card. But even when I was playing this deck going second, I still ran him at 1 copy and I thought it was just fine enough. So I don't see why we'd run him at any more copies in this version of the deck. Going into Cyberdarks now, 1 copy of Cyberdark Chimera. Again, this is a Cyber Dragon deck, so there's very few Cyberdark monsters you will see in this deck. In fact, there's only 2. There's only going to be the 1 copy of Chimera and the 1 copy of Cyberdark Wurm. I'm still low-key kind of mad that Wurm is a once per duel effect. I don't care what you guys say about power balance. Cyber Dragons deserve a little bit of a broken card. Too many other decks are able to just go off unrestricted. They unfairly neutered Wurm, in my opinion. But yeah, it's definitely essential to run 1 copy of each in the deck just because they are essential pieces of the combo for our main end board in this deck. So 1 copy of Wurm and 1 copy of Chimera is not up for debate. If you guys want to run more copies of them, you can absolutely go ahead. I know a lot of people run 3 copies of Cyberdark Claw just because Claw is able to search those cards. But honestly, I just know for a fact that Droll is going to be the most prevalent hand trap in the coming format. So there's no point having a bunch of search cards in the deck when we know that Droll is going to be so commonplace in the coming format. So that's a ratio that I like to run it at. Rounding off the 1 of monsters, we run 1 copy of Star Destroying Kaiju, 1 copy of Disablaster, and 1 copy of Therion King Regulus. I know I said this is a going first build now, but the reason why I still run Star Destroying Kaiju in the main deck is just because if it's a roll of the die or rock, paper, scissors, we're not always necessarily guaranteed to be going first. So I like to have a few going second cards just in case, and the Star Destroying Kaiju is of course very good in this deck for going second. Not only is it great because we're able to contact fuse it away if given the chance, but also we can search it with our Cyber Repair Plant. And also he's a light machine as well, so he's good fodder if we are looking to dump some monsters off of Chimeratech Rampage Dragon. He's still really good. Disablaster, I only run at 1 copy. I consider running it at more copies just because I brought back the Machine Duplication in this build, but honestly Disablaster is more of an extender in this deck, more so than anything else. He's not a main combo piece, he's more just an extra body or an extra negate on the field if we so need it. I would definitely consider running more copies of him than I would more copies of Nachster if you guys were looking to make that change. But for the time being, I'm really glad at keeping him at 1. And Therion King Regulus, he's just a great Omni Negate that we're easily able to get out onto the field if we have a machine monster in the graveyard. But not only that, since we're now able to search him off of Clockwork Night as well, means that we're able to work him into the combo where Therion King Regulus is an essential part of our end board. So I think he is a must to run. So 1 copy of each of these. If you want to put the Kaiju in the side deck and maybe run an extra copy of Disablaster in the main, that's absolutely fine. You can play this deck any way you want. It's totally up to yourselves. I run 3 copies of Ash Blossom. It's just a very good universal hand trap. So it's great against a lot of matchups, so I definitely recommend you guys run Ash. And finally for the monsters, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. I originally considered putting Fruvalos in the main over Droll, but then I considered that we do want to go first with this deck. So Droll is just better at going first, and also Droll can be a lot more crippling to certain matchups than Fruvalos is. Plus, Droll is almost always live anyways. You're more likely to be in a position to activate Droll and Lockbird than you are to activate Fruvalos. So Droll made the cut into the main deck, and Fruvalos is now sitting in the side. Going into the spells now, 3 copies of Cyber Emergency. Cyber Emergency is able to add a light machine monster, cannot be normal summoned or set, or 1 Cyber Dragon monster from your deck to your hand. We mostly use this to search core if we don't open it, but if we already open core, it's good to help us search for some extenders such as Jormungandr, Nachster, or even regular old Cyber Dragon. So I think it's definitely very essential to run it at 3 copies. It's mainly just there so we can add core to our hand though. We have an extra search card in the form of Cyber Repair Plant. Repair Plant isn't as good as Cyber Emergency because it needs a maintenance cost of having Cyber Dragon in your graveyard, but if you have 3 or more Cyber Dragons in your graveyard, you can activate the 2 effects of Cyber Repair Plant, meaning that you can either add 1 light machine monster from your deck to your hand and /or target 1 light machine monster in your graveyard and shove that target into the deck. It's just a great bonus search card. Honestly, Emergency is the main search card, but it's also nice to have Repair Plant. It can also search some of our non-Cyber Dragon monsters, such as the Kaiju or Disablaster. 1 copy of Cyberdark Realm. You can absolutely run this at more copies if you want, but I think 1 copy is more than enough, because although it is an integral part of the combo, we only run 2 Cyberdark monsters, so as soon as we get that part of the combo over and done with, then there's no real reason for us to be having Realm anymore. It can be a good starter, and I did consider running more copies, but again, since this is a Cyber Dragon deck more so than a Cyber Dark deck, I decided to only go with 1. Because considering Cyberdark Wurm's effect is only once per duel, we really don't have too much more of a reason to run Realm any more than 1 copy in this deck, so I think running a 1 copy is more than enough. We run 1 copy of Machine Duplication. I brought it back for this deck just because I did come back around to it. This is now a going first build, so Machine Duplication is absolutely fantastic for going first. I think it's essential to run at 1 copy. I would not run it at any more than 1 copy, just because we also run Thrust in this build, so we're better off having the opportunity of using Thrust to get us our Machine Duplication rather than opening a bunch of Machine Duplications, because it's not an essential card that we need in our hand every time. we can get some pretty good end boards without it. So I think 1 copy is more than enough. We run 2 copies of Power Bond. Power Bond is just a fantastic fusion spell. It's the only fusion spell we run now. We don't run Overload Fusion and we don't run Cyberload Fusion anymore. I just went with 2 copies of Power Bond just because we're able to search Power Bond off of our Cyberdark Chimera, which is great, so it gives us easy access to it. But also it's nice to have a second one just because we do run an awful lot of fusions and it's great for enabling us to OTK. So I think Power Bond at 2 is of course definitely very essential. If you want to change around and maybe spice up the fusion spells you run, that's absolutely fine. If you want to run maybe a greater polymerization or something like that, or even just a regular polymerization or maybe even fusion substitute, I can see where you're coming from, especially when you're pairing with Jormungandr. But my personal preference is 2 copies of Power Bond. We run 2 copies of Clockwork Night. Clockwork Night is actually very essential for our combo because we need to also search it off of our Clockwork Night, the monster card, and also discard it in order to search for our Therion in that 1 combo. So you need to run it at least 1. But I like to have the second copy just because it could be essential for us if we are stuck going seconds that we're able to just activate Clockwork Night, special summon a Cyber Dragon, and then contact fuse away our opponent's board. That's why I think it is still very important to run it at least 2 copies. I would be running it at 3 if this was a going second deck, but since this is going first, 2 is all you need. We also run 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet, and I know Droplet is more a going second card, but I don't think that's fully true. If we're able to pop off first and set a Droplet to the back row, it's absolutely a great card to have in your back row because it can be an absolutely lethal interruption to our opponent. But also, we're not always guaranteed to go first, so it's always nice to have a quote-unquote going second card. 1 copy of Call by the Grave because this is a combo deck at the end of the day, so we don't want to get interrupted when we're popping off. Then finally, rounding off the spells, 2 copies of Thrust and 1 copy of Talent. Talent is a fantastic card to activate if we get interrupted, meaning that it is a great card to search off of Thrust. But we also do have some very good other Thrust targets in the deck, such as Machine Dupe, Power Bond, and Cyber Emergency. So I like to run these cards at this ratio. I think this is the ideal ratio. I think 3 copies of Thrust might be a bit overkill. And also we're trying to keep this card count down for a little bit more consistency. So 2 copies of Thrust and 1 copy of Talent rounds off the spells. And then finally rounding off the deck, 3 copies of Imperm. Imperm is just a fantastic hand trap. There's no reason why you shouldn't run it. Going into the extra deck now, I like to just say this is an extremely tight extra deck. There is so little room for us to kind of mess around with it. So I tried to keep this as concise as I possibly could. If you want to suggest any changes, you can absolutely go ahead. But genuinely, for the build that I've just showed you, this is probably the best ratios for the extra deck that I can come up with. So we'll start things off, 2 copies of Chimeratech Rampage Dragon. Rampage is the best OTK enabler in this deck, especially when we're pairing it with our only fusion spell, which is Power Bond, because Power Bond doubles the attack of the monster we bring out, meaning that Rampage Dragon is able to go up to 4200 attack, and considering it has an effect where you can dump an additional 2 light machine monsters from your deck to the graveyard in order to get 2 additional attacks, means that you're able to get Rampage to attack 3 times with 4200 attack, which can be absolutely game ending right there and then. I think it is definitely essential to run at 2 copies because if we are playing against a deck like Kashtira and they have a Unicorn and they see that we only run 1 Rampage, not only is Rampage great at ending games, but also we do need to use one of them for the combo. So it is definitely beneficial to run more than 1 copy because we don't want any unicorns to take it away from us. So 2 copies of Rampage Dragon I think is absolutely essential. I wouldn't run it at any less. Going into the contact fusing monsters, we run 1 copy of Chimeratech Megafleet Dragon and 2 copies of Chimeratech Fortress Dragon. Honestly, Megafleet Dragon is so funny because recently in Worlds that was a side deck option going against Crystron because Krystrons are able to bring out Infinity, and Megafleet Dragon you're able to contact fuse off the field by using 1 Cyber Dragon monster, i.e. Infinity, and 1 monster in the extra monster zone. It's just absolutely hilarious that people were using this to contact fuse against Crystron. In particular, I just find that really funny. So it's a great little bit of tech. And also Chimeratech Fortress Dragon. It's great if we have Clockwork Night in the field because it turns all monsters in the field into machine monsters. So you're able to contact fuse the field by using 1 Cyber Dragon and all the machine monsters in the field that you can suck up. And I run it at 2 because we run 2 copies of Clockwork Night. And again, if we're going against a deck that plays Kateria Unicorn, we don't want them to be banishing our Fortress Dragon, so I think it is essential to run these cards at this ratio. Some of the alternative fusion monsters we run, 1 copy of Cyber Twin Dragon. If you want to run End Dragon, I don't really care, go ahead, do it, it doesn't matter too much to me. and 1 copy of the Mechanical Dawn. Mechanical Dawn is definitely essential for our combo. It's a great card that is basically a spell or trap card negate, which is a great piece of the end board, so I definitely recommend you guys run it. Twin Dragon, if you want to run end, it doesn't matter. I just think Twin Dragon is the better choice just because it's easier to go into, it uses less resources, so you're definitely better off going with him. And if you're able to bring it out with Power Bond, then this card shoots up to a 5600 attack monster that's able to attack twice, which I just think is absolutely crazy. Definitely recommend running it at that ratio. XZs now, 1 copy of Cyber Dragon Nova and 1 copy of Cyber Dragon Infinity. I miss the days when we ran 2 Nova and 2 Infinity because we were able to kind of like build it up into a later game. We were sometimes able to have 2 Infinity out onto the field. But alas, this deck is getting so tight that 1 and 1 is all you really need. They are fantastic boss monsters. Well, Infinity is a fantastic boss monster, but it isn't necessarily the end goal with this deck anymore. So I think only 1 copy of each is all you really need. But I will say Infinity, still to this day, one of my favorite cards of all time. Since we run XZs, of course, we're also going to throw in ZEUS in there. If I'm playing XZs in any deck, I think ZEUS will always find a way to creep into it. It is just that good of a card. Even when I've been playing Pearly over the past couple of weeks, my main end goal with Pearly was just to build up as big a ZEUS as possible. And it was ultimately what won me the game most times. So I definitely think ZEUS is a lot of fun to run. And rounding off the XZs, 1 copy of TY-PHON. This is just in case we're stuck going second and we ran through all of our plays and we don't really have much left going on. TY-PHON can just be a good monster to get us out of a tough situation. Going into the links now, 1 copy of Clockwork Night. This is essential for the combo. You absolutely need to run it at 1. I wouldn't run it at any more, but it's definitely a very important card, especially very early on. It helps us search our Clockwork Night the spell card, so you absolutely need to run it at 1 copy in the deck. 1 copy of Proxy F Magician. Yes, there are only fusion spells in the deck, are 2 copies of Power Bond, but we also need an alternative way to fusion outside of those 2 spells. So Proxy F Magician allows us to do that because it has the effect that during your main phase you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monster in the field as fusion material, which is absolutely fine, but in the combo we actually line this up very well with Cyberdark Chimera, because Cyberdark Chimera has an effect that this turn, once when you fusion summon, you can also banish monster from the graveyard as material. So you're able to line it up where you're able to get that effect of Chimera early so that you can use that banishing effect and apply it to Proxy F Magician, which I find to just be really, really cool. It is definitely really essential to run this at 1 as part of the combo. We also run 1 copy of SP Little Knight. Not an essential card, but a powerful card. SP Pass is a very common play you see nowadays, so it's hardly surprising that this card makes its way into almost every deck. And finally, 1 copy of Cyber Dragon Seeger. Honestly, I get so frustrated with Seeger a bunch of times, just because I think it is a very frustrating card in terms of linking into him and also its effect. But hey, he's the only Cyber Dragon Link monster we have, so we might as well play him. We're going to round things off in the side deck now. I will admit I got really aggressively going second making this side deck. So you can change this out depending whatever way you want. As of recording this video, we still don't have a ban list after Worlds. So I don't know what's going to be hit on the ban list. I don't know what's going to be the most powerful deck in the current format. So it's really hard to decipher what to put into your side deck. We're just at a weird purgatory right now in the format. So I went really aggressive with going second cards, but you can change this any way you want. It won't affect your main combos we'll be going into in the next video. So starting things off, I run 3 copies of Fruvalos. This deck can go second, but we do need a lot of draws in order to do that. So if we are still going second, Fruvalos is a good way to ensure that we get some more draws, so we're able to successfully OTK from there. So I definitely think running these copies of Fruvalos is essential in the side deck. We also run a great form of back row removal with 1 copy of Harvest Fairy Duster and 3 copies of Lightning Storm. This is just for like the back row heavy decks. We want to try and get rid of their back row as quickly as possible. Harpies and Lightning Storm is very good for that. But also Lightning Storm has a very good dual purpose. In a sense, it's also able to get rid of attack position monsters as well. So I like to run these guys at this ratio. We have a few other thrust targets as well. So 1 copy of Raigeki, 1 copy of Dimensional Barrier, and 1 copy of Different Dimensional Ground. We can side this in accordingly based on what we're going against, but they are all great targets off of our Triple Tactics Trust. So I like to run 1 copy of each. I originally had the idea of running just 3 copies of Raigeki because I really wanted to go aggressive as much as I could with the side deck. But then I kind of decided against it, just in case we do have the opportunity to go first again if we're going into game 3 or whatever. Dimensional Barrier and Different Dimension Ground can be pretty good against certain matchups, so we like to run them when the opportunity presents itself. We also run 3 copies of Evenly Matched. I think this might actually be the first time I ever put Evenly Matched in Cyberdragon, just because I was so in the mindset of this was a going second deck that I was always so sure that the match would end by the battle phase that I never really saw a point of having Evenly Matched. But since we are going first now, and it's not always a necessity that we need to win in one turn, Evenly Matched can be a pretty good side deck option for this deck. So I definitely think it's good to run at 3 copies in the side. And finally, rounding us off, 3 copies of Solemn Strike. The Solemn cards are absolutely insane no matter what the format, and Strike right now is no exception. Considering that this is a going first deck now, if we're going into game 3 and we're able to decide if we want to go first or go second, going first might be the shout, and with Strike in the back row, your odds of winning are definitely a bit more plentiful, especially since we don't need to worry about being burnt in time anymore. It's just made the Solemn cards all that much more powerful. So that about does it for your deck. Please let me know what you guys think. I'm really happy with this deck turned out. I think I will miss playing Cyberdragon as a going second strategy. Maybe I might return to it at some other stage. As of right now, and maybe in this coming format, I think we are probably better off playing it as a going first build. Decks that are designed to go first just always tend to do better than decks that are blind second. That's just a generally accepted fact at this stage. We don't need to worry about Tempai Dragons anymore. They've been hit plentifully on the ban list, so they're not really all that big of a threat anymore. So we might as well just join the others and just becoming a going first deck, because if you can't beat them, then join them. If you guys are interested in building this deck, then please be sure to use the affiliate links in the description down below. By using those affiliate links, you directly support the channel and help myself and Sean keep bringing you guys these videos. Another way you can consider supporting out the channel is if you guys would consider becoming a member. We want to give a big shout out to our members Ronnie L, Jojo TCGs, and John Cran. We really appreciate your continued support. It definitely helps myself and Sean out a whole lot, so thank you very much for that. And for the rest of you, you could just like the video and subscribe to the channel and even leave a comment. It all helps to boost us up in the algorithm. So for that, also just thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.